to another episode of Catholics Living Discipleship. I'm your host, Darren Nelson. Today we have Jacob Doran, who is the Director of Evangelization and Catechesis for St. Brendan the Hilliard. Hilliard. But it's St. Brendan the Navigator. Wow. All right. It is Friday.
Oh, it must be.
All right, we'll do it one more time. We'll get it this time. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Catholics Living Discipleship. I'm your host, Darren Nelson. Today, we are going to be speaking with Jacob Doran, who is the Director of Evangelization and Catechesis for St. Brendan the Navigator in Hilliard, Ohio. And today's episode, we're going to be focusing on the impact of family faith formation at his parish, and hopefully inspire and encourage you to consider and think about the impact that it can have at your parish if you're not quite doing it at your parish yet. So welcome, Jacob. So glad to have you here and excited about the conversation.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah. This is going to be an easy, not challenging conversation, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is something that is very easily implemented at a parish, right? The shifting culture is not hard.
It only takes a few years to get it right.
But let's jump into, well, let me just, for the viewers or listeners, here are the three key things that Jacob and I really want to bring home for you. First, we want to talk about the impact. Like, how does this really impact the families and the parish, right? It's important to think about both. We're going to talk a little bit about why the pastor saw this as important to really consider and make that shift in the culture. And then we're going to end with just talking about the structure in which Jacob is using at the parish. And it should be familiar to some of you because he uses the Faith and Family Life Catholic Ministries pathways. We had Stephen Seraphin, the executive director, on talking about that as well. So those are the things we're gonna tackle here. So, Jacob, let's first talk about that. There's been that transition from the traditional religious ed to the family faith formation. Talk a little bit about the impact that it has had for your families and the parish.
Yeah. The number one impact I see for our families who are in this family faith formation program is the engagement. The families that are there, the families that are coming, the families that do these at-home family meetings with the pathways boxes is just that they're more engaged in their faith in the parish. The parents are more engaged in passing on faith to their kids. So it's just like they're more bought in, really, in a sense. And that's been something that's been great to see. It's very encouraging, for me as the leader as well, the director, to see that people are getting behind it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when you say, they're more engaged, thinking back in the time when they were less engaged, what does more engaged to you and for these families? What does that look like? Are they, because oftentimes this, right? People are always saying we have to really get them to come back to Mass more, or we the parents don't necessarily have a very strong faith journey. We hope to help them with that. Like, what is happening in these families' lives that you consider engaged?
Yeah, I think the basic level, it's being there, just being present during those faith formation sessions. We have times, we have the children present together learning, then we have the parents together learning as well. So just actually, being in the building instead of sitting in their car in the parking lot or going to the grocery store. That's one way that they're more engaged for sure. But we're seeing, families at Mass. Something I hear from a lot of our parents, when I take time to visit with them before the catechetical year starts, is that they want to be getting back to Mass more often. I hear that a lot. And when they get involved into this faith formation program and they start using the resources and they start talking more about faith in their daily life with the kids, it gives them that motivation to really follow through on what they desire to get back to Mass. So this is my parish. I go to the 8:45 a.m. Mass every Sunday with my family, and I see a lot of our faith formation families there.
Hmm.
making it to mass and being with their family, even if, they happen to be a single parent and that's a little harder, or even if their kids are a little more, younger and rambunctious. They're there. So they're getting engaged with their faith in that way. And another way I see it is they'll often tell me that they're learning alongside their children about the faith. So they have these at-home family meetings out of the pathways resources, the boxes. Um, and they talk about, I had a parent tell me that he feels like he's knocking the rust off of his Catholic education. Um,
Love
and
it.
I've had other parents tell me, like multiple parents say, this is the only time we get to sit down together as a family during the week.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're engaging with their family, they're engaging with their faith, they're engaging with the sacraments more. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what I really love about what you said is oftentimes when we're talking about families, parents, the first go-to is we got to get them back to mass.
Hmm.
It's not we got to get them around a table and really know who they are, right?
Hmm.
Everybody thinks you got to get them to the mass first. But what we just heard in what you just shared, the mass part came after sitting at the table.
Hmm.
So there's truth to the fact that let's sit down, let's engage, let's get to know them at their level. Let's walk with them. Let's allow the Holy Spirit to work in their own hearts to
Yeah.
create that desire to now go to the Mass, be engaged in their faith in that way with their kids, not be saying, you got to get to Mass, right?
Yeah, I think that's right on. We got to get them in the building, before they can go to mass, and getting them into a faith formation program. A lot of times that's honestly driven by sacrament preparation. They want their kids to go to their first confession and receive the Eucharist for the first time. A lot of parents they see that initially as more of like a ritual or rite of passage.
Yeah.
So we get them in the building, we get them in the faith formation program, and then there's a mix of their own desire and then some teaching as well that I think um, hits a switch in them to start saying, oh, there's more context to this faith than just a rite of passage.
Yeah. And the other thing that I really love too about what you said about what happens when they're experiencing this family faith formation is they have a greater desire for their own learning,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
oftentimes, again, we're saying to ourselves, we got to help these parents grow in their faith. Let's get them to mass and let's help them grow in their faith. But what we have to help them do is grow in their own desire for the faith.
Hmm.
It's we can't force our desire upon them, help them grow that own desire in them. And it will happen in their time with the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By helping them see that there's something meaningful for them in the faith and learning about the faith, that it does change things for them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and how I like to articulate that too is um it's they need to see how impactful it can be for their own lives and the lives of their family because that's something else
Hmm.
that you mentioned. As they started to see the impact of this for their family, as a family, they had a desire to go to mass and practice that, right? It's the impact. I don't like to participate in things unless I know it's going to be impactful.
Hmm.
We live in such a busy world, don't we,
Yeah.
Jacob? Where
Oh gosh.
we're I don't. It's almost like myself and I don't have time to participate in something unless I know it's going to be impactful for my life. Whether the impact is working out, I like to swim, or the impact is spiritually grow. I like to go to
Hmm.
adoration.
Hmm.
But if it's not going to be impactful, or I don't feel as if it's important, I'm not going to do it. but getting them around
Yeah.
the table and helping each other to experience that, that's what moves people to the mass, I believe, and
Yeah, I
see it
think
and see it
you're
happen.
you're absolutely right about that. Making the choice for meaningful things. Um, I'm right in the thick of it right now. I've got three kids of my own. They're 12, 11, and 8. So they're at the age where they can do a lot of things. They can participate in a lot of like sports
Yeah.
and
You're
activities.
driving around a lot,
But
aren't you, Jacob?
exactly, I am driving around a lot and I'm spending a lot of time in the parking lots of a dance
Yeah.
studio or,
Yep.
a high school for band, band practice. And it's great. These are things that we've chosen for our kids because they're meaningful and we know they're going to help them in their positive environments. Um, but my wife and I are making those same decisions with faith. We want to put our kids into those environments of faith that are
Hmm.
going to be meaningful and impactful as well. And
Hmm.
my wife and I being, having some formation, having been missionaries before we were married, we know that the Mass is a great place for that formation, is a great environment. But that's something we've learned over time how important that is.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, because we could go on and on about the impact and how this really helps fosters true evangelization and
Mm.
discipleship, right?
Hmm.
That's what we're talking about. This is
Yeah.
true evangelization and true discipleship growth, right? We're fostering discipleship when we are doing family faith formation. However, and you, I think, probably have experienced this in your area as well. Maybe speaking with some other pastors or your pastor initially, there's it's a challenge to make this shift in culture. This
Yes.
is this is a big shift in a parish's culture. I'll recognize that it is definitely a shift, and I'm helping a pastor do it right now. And sometimes my nerve endings are just shot, like because it is right. But
Yes.
what motivated your pastor to really say this is something that's significant?
Hmm. We used to have a just your basic classroom drop-off model here at our parish. It was actually a pretty big program. It was very convenient for parents of other parishes to enroll their kids here because of the different times that we offered, that classroom faith formation. Um, and even with the amount of students that were involved, the amount of parents, that were dropping their kids off week after week, we just weren't seeing the fruit. I'm sure a lot of directors and faith formation leaders will have seen the same thing, is that the kids just disappear after confirmation.
Hmm.
For us, that's has been eighth grade, and we have that classic graph of a whole bunch of kids come in second grade, they disappear for a while, and in eighth grade, for confirmation, they come back, and then we don't ever see them again. So it's just the fruit wasn't there for that kind of faith formation program in our parish. So the pastor, he came up with a 5-year plan to transition into a family catechesis. Um, and there's no other parish in our diocese that was doing it at that time. So he talked with the bishop and got his blessing to do it. And they were getting ready to start when COVID hit. So the
Mm.
pastor at that point just said, just do the whole thing right now. So it was just like an immediate flip into a family-based catechesis at our parish. And that was honestly really hard for a lot of families to make that switch all of a sudden, especially in the context of a pandemic. But over the years, as that context has gone away and we moved just into regular, ordinary life again, um, it's become that norm, and the culture has shifted over the number of years. I'd say it took really 3 years of doing family catechesis for that culture, to make a complete change where it became, this is the normal thing that we do now at St. Brendan.
Hmm. Hmm. And the culture change. Now, Jacob, are you able to, prior to the pandemic, right? You were participating in the traditional religious ed model, right? Prior to the pandemic.
So I wasn't in the position yet. I was teaching actually in our parish school at that point. So I was
Yeah, but
teaching in a classroom, yeah. But the
the
parish
par
was doing the traditional model, yeah.
yeah. So you saw that.
Yeah.
Then it's funny because as challenging as the pandemic was, there's been a lot of good things that did come out of that.
Hmm.
You know, in so many ways. I my wife and I, we still kind of like laugh at the fact. Gee, gosh, you remember we were wearing masks everywhere?
Yeah.
It's like you almost it's like a whole different time.
Hmm.
It's just so crazy. But anyways, um, that shift in culture from a traditional religious ed to now a family formation. The how did you guys? I know the pandemic was really kind of the catalyst and almost made it. Um, let's just do it. But
Yeah.
after the pandemic, as the families were coming back to the parish, and you had
Hmm.
to really start to structure it in the way in which a family formation is structured at a parish. Talk a little bit about that. Like, how did you transition from them just doing it at home to now having a model where you are actually having the parents sit around the table and have these family formation gatherings.
Yeah. The base of it's a lot of communication. And that starts with, for us, a visit that happens. For me, I hold them all over the summer. So between May and August, I try to visit with every single faith formation family that we have. They don't all show up, of course. So, I'll run about 80 to 100 visits with a parent or a couple or sometimes even a whole family over the course of the summer, and just talking to them about family life, their experience of faith formation, asking them what we could do better to support them. But then also explaining this is what we're going to be doing over the course of the next year. So there's, clear communication and then personal relationships that are being built during that time. And then, the reminders, the accountability through the year, just trying to, as much as possible, say this is the normal thing that we're doing, and then sharing the success that families have as well. So we have, for every family meeting that happens at home, we'll collect, either some kind of submission. It's called a family follow through. So they either send me a picture or a
Hmm.
text reply, talking about what happened or showing what happened in their family meeting. And then we'll put those pictures once a quarter. We'll put a big banner, a 6-foot banner in our gathering space at the
Oh, that's good.
parish. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it shows what's going on. There's a little bit of accountability there, right? Everybody else is sending in my pictures. I
yeah,
probably should too.
yeah,
Um, but also it gives the context and that normalcy, for the at-home meetings and that family formation.
yeah. So, just so viewers and listeners know, I mentioned this earlier. So you're using Faith and Family Life Catholic Ministries, the Pathways Suite, which
Hmm.
has different types of uh, formation, if you will. There's all different kinds. Seek is the first one that we
Hmm.
have families go through, Seek, Root, and then there's the Sacramental, and then ongoing formation. Um, Before we jump into that, something intrigued me, and I think this is a very important aspect to developing family formation at the parish, and it is these family visits that you just
Hmm.
said. And I can imagine that people who are listening saying, one person, 80 to 100 families, one-on-one visits. Some parishes probably design it a little bit differently. Maybe have teams, have trained
Hmm.
teams to do it. But what I have experienced just in reading and done a few, because I am helping this pastor, but
Hmm.
I'm not going to be doing them, is that personal interaction with the families, getting to know them, and addressing the questions and challenges that the parents may speak to,
Hmm.
right? What kind of experiences have you had with that? What kind of challenges might come up or questions might come up from parents about this type of model that I'm sure some people who are watching and listening saying, but I can only imagine some parents saying they don't want to be doing this and they just want to drop their kids off. Like, what are some of those challenges and what's your experience with helping parents with those?
I mean, the experience has been overwhelmingly positive. Of course, there are, two or three meetings a year, well, where I'll get the constructive criticism, right?
Right,
You know,
right.
but the visits still happen. They're still willing to come in and talk to me and share, what's making them maybe unhappy, or
Yeah.
what's difficult for them as a parent with the program that we run. Um, but you know, there's a parent a couple of years ago where she came in and she was so excited. Her first question was like, "What's next? What are we doing next?" Um, and I just imagine, a program that's still using textbooks, the spiral textbooks where it's, covering kind of the same things in the catechism year after year, but in a little deeper way, a parent saying, what's the next textbook we're going to get? It's funny how different that experience is,
Hmm.
when you're using a family model instead. Um, but the parents they're happy, to be here, to share, to talk about what's going on with their families. They're happy that somebody's interested,
Hmm.
in their family life. They almost all feel really supported by the church and by me and by my team. And they're, a lot, it's the conversations tend to just be, how's life been going? What
Yeah.
was your experience this last year in faith formation? How can we pray for you is a really important question to ask as well. And then just having the opportunity to pray, right there in the office or over the phone with them too.
Yeah. And how helpful, Jacob, do you find these family visits that you have are helping you to help the parish and the families implement family faith formation? Like, do you think it would be as impactful if you didn't have these family visits?
No, absolutely not, because this is the only way I can really, get that feedback,
Hmm.
about what's going on at home, about the resources and what the families want to learn about next, and if it's really the things are really helpful and meaningful, and that's the feedback I get is that they are. The reason that we decided to go with the Pathways Suite in the first place was based on parent feedback. We had a few different options our first year family catechesis of curriculum, a couple of different textbook series, and then our pathways boxes as well. About half the families were using the boxes, and then through the year, I had families coming to me asking to switch. Can we stop using this book and use
Oh,
the
wow.
box that our other
Yeah.
small group members are using instead?
Yeah.
Um, so that was nice that it made it really easy to choose a
Yeah.
curriculum for that next
Yeah.
year, because that's what the parents wanted.
Yeah. And we mention so often when we're talking about evangelizing people and journeying with people how important accompaniment is. If we want to
Hmm.
really help someone grow in their faith journey, encourage them to grow in a deeper relationship with Christ, encourage discipleship, we have to accompany them at a very personal level. This is how I believe these family visits are one way you can make a very significant impact at your parish
Hmm.
with evangelization and fostering discipleship, encouraging discipleship. Um, because you are having these one on one engagements where you are meeting the parents where they are at,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
if and I always think about because I really do love it and I've been through it, the Ananias training that the Catherine Siena Institute offers, where it
Yeah.
really, yeah, right, it really helps individuals, groups, the formation of it helps you personally
Hmm.
understand what it really means to be accompanying someone else where they are at. And a great resource to use for those catechists or, com, you know, we, I think this program calls them companions, right?
Yeah.
Table
Hmm.
companion, you know, all those people who are accompanying people who are doing family visits. The Ananias training is really can be helpful. But
Hmm.
again, my point being that these family visits are very significant for helping to change the culture at the parish, right?
Hmm.
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right. So here's something I want to ask because it's just kind of been placed on my heart,
Okay.
and I'm sure people are some PCLs or I don't know leadership at a parish listening to this. How about you, Jacob? How has this impacted you as the leader running family faith formation? Now I know a lot of religious ed directors or PCLs, depending on where you are, you know. And I tell you what, some of them are tired, you
Hmm.
know, struggling, um, frustrated. Uh, but how has this impacted you in your role, in your journey, in your mission,
Hmm.
working at the parish? You personally, how has it impacted you?
Yeah. I always say that, I mentioned before that I was a teacher before I came into this role, directing their faith formation program. I was a teacher for 9 years, but before that, I was a missionary for St. Paul's Outreach. I was at Ohio State. And being in this role and doing this kind of formation feels more like being back on mission on
Awesome.
campus than it does, being a classroom teacher. Um, it's something I was worried about coming into this job was how much time am I going to be spending in an office by myself looking at a computer. And it's been, such a welcome relief, honestly, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to be in parent sessions and talking with parents and while they're in their small groups and facilitating those sessions, guiding discussion, getting to do these visits as well, and building those personal relationships. Um, checking in on parents over the course of the year and just even those basic, email and phone conversations, making sure everything's going well for the parents. Being so relationally based in this job and with this model has just been wonderful for me. Honestly, it gives me that the excitement and the zeal, of being on mission, being really in the mission field, rather than just being in the office and doing administrative tasks day to
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. Big shift, right? I,
Hmm.
I, and I think it's important for people to hear that there is a significant shift in your role when you go from a traditional religious ed or PCL director, really kind of managing
Hmm.
um, the structure in which we're trying to teach the kids
Hmm.
to more of a mission focused role where you are really working on evangelizing the parents and families,
Hmm. Yep.
right? So there's even that, I think, that very important um, reflection that how important the role shifts for
Hmm.
you as the leader. It does become more mission focused, what we're called to be doing at the parish, right?
Yep.
Mission work, right? Not management work, but mission work. Management's important.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that speaks to the importance of the team, right? Not every person who is leading these models is going to have the gifts, the charisms, to get in there and to facilitate a session for a group of parents. Like in that same way. So to have a team around you with finding people who have those gifts and putting them on mission, it really is necessary for this model.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit because
Yeah.
putting this model together, the structure of it, um, it does take some planning, some strategy. As I mentioned, I'm doing it right now with a pastor in his parish, and those nerve endings. It's not so much. I don't believe in this, and I really truly do believe in it. Um, but it just goes back to we're shifting the culture, and shifting the culture is hard.
Yeah.
You know, it can be it's a little scary, but it does happen. It
Hmm.
Steve Seraphin, has done it at many parishes, has helped many parishes, and he's done it personally at a couple of parishes. And he talks about the time and in transition for the culture to change, and every time you shift that culture, there are challenges,
Yep.
but having a good strategy, planning, teams for this structure is also important,
Hmm.
right? So why don't you speak to, um, let's first speak to the first formation, Seek, what it
Hmm.
offers for the families, and how do you put together teams to actually help implement it at your parish?
Yeah. So Seek is that charismatic experience for our families. It doesn't even, dive heavily into the at-home learning yet. It just really gives a foundational base and a shared vocabulary for the parents and for the kids about what the gospel message is. There's 4 sessions and they all happen at church. We try to do them in the course of 2 months. So we'll try to do 2 in October and 2 in November to give each of those families who are usually brand new to faith formation, um, that basic experience of the charisma of faith. So we have kids who are in a session together with some catechists who are learning, and those same topics the parents are learning about, but of course at their own levels. What's developmentally appropriate for both groups. The kids, it's like a VBS experience for them. So there's music, there's games, there's crafts, there's teaching for them, and for the parents, it's a small group environment. So there's a place for discussion. There are some activities for them to do that helps to gives to really concretize what we're talking about with the kerygma, and then they have time for discussion in small groups as well. And that's where I just see everything come to life is that discussion time. I have a hard time getting the parents to stop talking
I
to each
know.
other
I know. I
about these
ran.
faith discussion
Yep.
questions. Yes.
Yep. Felt the same way. Ran Seek and Root, and yep,
Hmm.
same way.
Yeah. So, the team to make all that happen, we've got, like I said, catechists with the kids. We have what are called companions or table leaders, essentially, with the parent small groups. Myself, I'm the one who facilitates that parent session. So I'm in the front of the room, delivering the teaching, guiding the activities, moving them in and out of discussion times. Um, and then other members of the team would be something like hospitality. So somebody to help set up the room. If you're doing food, take care of that. Create a prayer table. And then intercessors would be the last member of the team. So someone who can take on, and if there are any like prayer requests during that time, or even during the session, they can be praying for all the parents and the families that are present there.
Yeah. I've seen that to be so powerful, those
Mhm.
intercessory prayers. And, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jacob, because I was just working with the pastor in terms of developing these teams, and the
Mhm.
intercessory prayer, I forgot to leave out. I left out.
Mm.
So, and that's important because in Christ's life, same thing. They encourage an intercessory prayer team to
Yeah.
be praying while the formation is happening, the gatherings are happening, and it's incredible. Just like you said, it's important, and I believe the Holy Spirit is working in and
Hmm.
through that in the hearts of people. So that's I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, so to help viewers or listeners see this structure, some might be saying, like at the parish I'm working at, there's um, something like 275 families. I forget the exact number,
Yeah.
right? So they have to do this 3 times on a Sunday. They've chosen to do it
Yeah.
on one Sunday, 3 times. It's going to be about 80 um, 80 families a session.
Hmm.
And so I just know right now people are saying, but how do you do that? You
Yeah.
got, you got 160 parents, if every parent's there,
Hmm.
and all the kids. So break that down a little bit, Jacob. Like, how do you, I don't know what, but how do you break that down at your gathering?
Yeah, we did something similar in our second year family catechesis. That's when we switched to using all pathways. And during that year, we did seek and root for the whole group. So it was similar. It was like 250 families
Yeah.
that year that everybody went through those two courses, and those two experiences. So uh, actually, like you said, we did 3 sessions. Guys kind of split it up by age group. So Sunday morning, all our families who had kids K through 5, they came to that session, and parents were in our parish hall, and the kids were in our school gym. Um, on Sunday nights, we would do it with parents who just had middle schoolers, so sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And then we would do another session on Monday evening, and that would be for families who had kids K through 8. So really looking at those different age groups, to break up, and that made that easier, especially on the catechists, because we would find catechists, okay, who wants to work with younger kids, who wants to work with
Hmm.
middle schoolers. And we are able to enlist my team on staff as well. Our middle school youth minister would help out with teaching those middle schoolers too.
Hmm.
And the way we would find our, honestly, the way we found a lot of our companions, those table leaders, was through the visits that I did over the summer.
Hmm.
People who seemed particularly excited and engaged and knowledgeable about their faith. I would just ask them, "Hey, would you be willing to lead a table, to be a companion for six, 8 other parents,
Yeah.
um, during these family sessions at church?" It's about once a month, so not a huge commitment. It's not every single week for a whole school year. It's 10 about it's really, yeah, 10 times that you'd be sitting with these other parents.
Yeah.
And rarely would I get a no. A lot of times the parents would be excited to be able to share and to lead in that way.
Yeah. And you don't have to have a theological degree because
No.
oftentimes, right? When we ask people to consider being a cat, well, I don't have the not. No, you don't have to have any type. It's about guiding the conversation
Hmm.
that's right in front of you. You
Yep.
have the discussion questions. It's just a matter of saying, okay, now let's talk about this. What are your thoughts? Hey, John, what do you think? Mary, thank you so much for sharing that. It's just being there, right? Just
Yep.
helping the conversation. Yeah. What would you say, Jacob, to those who might be thinking right now, well, that model doesn't seem to be teaching or educating the way in which the books in a more traditional religious ed
Hmm.
setting, because that's right, that's one of those objections, so to speak, or
Yeah.
challenges that you face. What would you say, what do you say to that? How do you respond to that?
My response would be to ask the person to look back at their own, faith formation experience, whether that was PSR, CCD, whatever, and just ask them, what do you remember from that experience? And maybe they had a really good experience, and they did lots of learning, and they do remember a lot of it. Um, but I think to my own experience, and I think to the conversations I've had with the parents at my parish, and it just unfortunately wasn't very effective. The About the average catechesis level for parents here when they're coming in is about second grade.
Mm.
So we're assuming that, you know, with those traditional models, that people will remember everything they learned up through their confirmation, and it's not typically the case.
Yeah. And also, we have to remember that our faith journey isn't about a knowledge test.
Mm,
It's about a relationship,
yep.
right? Um, I don't think, because this was one of the gospel readings recently, Jesus sends out the 12. I'm pretty sure he didn't give them an exam. Hey, how much do you know?
Hmm,
Tell me what you know before he sent them out. I'm, I'm, I'm,
yep.
I'm pretty sure. Some of them probably would have scored pretty low. But there's no exam, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what our faith journey is about. However, here's how I like to respond to that challenge. I always like to look forward.
Mm.
And you mentioned it at the very beginning. See, when my own personal desire grows in my faith journey, I become hungry for
Oh yeah.
more, right?
Yep.
So I really believe that, and seeing this happen in my own life, and you mentioned it in families' lives, as you grow in your faith journey and your desire to attend mass, your desire grows, you're going to want to learn more.
Yeah.
You're going to, when someone offers you, say, a book on a saint, you'll read it. When someone offers you a book or a video today, I mean, that's what we do. We watch videos. I
Yeah.
love
Yep.
watching Bishop Barron videos. A video, hey, watch this 10-minute video on what Bishop Barron says about the real presence of the Eucharist.
Mm-hmm.
Then that now we're helping people to be fed and grow.
Yeah.
The book, yeah, I mean, it's knowledge, but how is that knowledge being fostered and cared for
Mm-hmm.
back at home when parents aren't necessarily being engaged in that?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen. Now, I want people to hear this. I'm not judging people for where they are at. What I'm saying is we desire to help people grow from
Mm-hmm.
where they are. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. And part of my experience with the Pathways resources is that it gives the parents those tools and the ability to share their faith with the kids,
Yeah,
to start having those conversations. And it's just something that a lot of parents lack, and no fault of their own.
right.
It's just something that we haven't done a good job as a church teaching parents
Yep.
how to share their faith with children.
Yeah. And that's where root really starts to take hold,
Yeah. Yep.
right? You shift from, so as Jacob had mentioned, Seek is really about allowing parents and kids at their level in different sessions, so to speak, to be reintroduced to what the gospel, the kerygma really can mean in their lives and for their lives and how it has impacted their lives now and can continue to impact their lives. Then once they have started to have that relationship or experience, now we shift into root, which correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, but is focused on the creed,
The
correct?
Apostles' Creed, or the first section of the Catechism.
The catechism, right?
Hmm.
And now we're shifting into the families still coming to these gatherings, but now these at-home experiences, they're given a box that are very simple.
Hmm.
And we had a pilot program going on. We just had the families come back um, last Sunday to share their experience with these family gatherings through the box.
Hmm.
And they were so grateful and appreciative for them because it's all laid out, and it really is created in a way that just helps to have a faith-based conversation
Hmm.
at dinner, after dinner. Some people shared Sunday evenings.
Yep.
Like every family is going to find that time, but I was I was pleasantly surprised, or
Yeah.
just that the families were like, "This is great."
Hmm. I think there's a few different aspects of that, of roots. One is the box that they start to do at home. It's just 6 at-home family meetings, and it focus on different images that help us to understand who God is. And along with that, there's a book as well for the parents, and they go through and they learn and they study really what's a summary of the first part of the catechism, and that
Mhm.
helps them during those family meetings at home to organically speak to what they've learned about the same topic.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ability, we're trying to help those parents ability to have more of a free conversation instead of just read the script, but to be able to say, oh yeah, this is something else I know on
Mm-hmm.
this topic, try to communicate that with their kids. And what I see is because there's that opportunity to study and to teach, and that their desire is growing, that hunger starts to set in a lot of these parents, and
Yeah.
they're really excited to start to learn more about their faith in a more adult way.
Yeah. And that book that you're talking about, what I really like about it is there are audio recordings
Yeah, my
that,
parents love those.
yeah, that, I put my earbuds in and the the speaker, it's very, I just enjoy it.
Hmm.
It's not heavy theological teaching. It's
Great.
really right where we are at in terms of the way in which the information is presented,
Hmm.
and it's enjoyable, and they're short.
Yeah,
It's not like you're listening to a 45-minute podcast.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
So
No, they're
it's
short.
it's like 25 pages maybe of reading, and
Yeah.
we give the parents a month to get through that. I'm not sure what exactly the time amount of time would be to listen to that, but it's when you break it down, maybe what, 5 to 6 pages a week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's simple, and
Hmm.
and I say that very genuinely. Like, it really is simple, and
Hmm.
if you listen to the audio, um, I don't know. I'm gonna even say it's even simpler,
Yeah.
because what's nice about it is in the book with the, I forget what they call them, but the different sections
Hmm.
the different modules, I think they're
Yeah.
called. Um, at the end, there's reflection questions and a
Hmm.
prayer, and in the audio, they give you that reflection question, so you could be listening, and then they give you the reflection question. The audio stops, and you think about it.
Hmm.
You think about it. So it's really a great, it's really a great program. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope this has been very encouraging for our viewers and listeners. It's helped me as I think more
Okay, good.
about the parish that I'm helping as well. But most importantly, it's really about how do we shift this culture
Mhm.
for our families so that we really are focused on mission, right?
Yeah.
So we're focused on mission. So, what would be your last thought, Jacob, of encouragement for people who are still with us on the podcast, who are listening right to the end? What would be your encouragement for some next steps with someone who may have listened, who are here with us right now?
Um, I think if you're going to take a next step, the best thing to do is just to get in touch with that team, at Faith and Family Life Catholic Ministries. That's something that's been huge for me over the last 5 years in this position, is that they've invested in me as a leader as well. So they're not just a publisher. It truly is a ministry
Hmm.
to leaders, to directors, to the PCLs out there who are really trying to change their model to a family-based catechesis.
Yeah, and like any other great Catholic organization, they offer podcasts and not podcasts, webinars that
Hmm.
teach you. There's now this is something you're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they even gather leaders. Do they
Yeah,
gather
so they'll
leaders?
do conferences periodically, as well. I know they travel. So they
Yeah,
travel around. If a diocese invites them in, they'll
yeah,
travel and
yeah,
do some kind of event there. Yeah.
yeah. So um, they're there to help, basically. They're there to
Yes.
help. And
Yep.
I would resonate exactly what Jacob said. Reach out to them. We'll put links to that organization in the description below. And again, Jacob, thank you so much for the conversation. I think I'd like to maybe some time, 6 months, a year from now, have you come back and maybe share some more experiences that you're having.
Yeah, that'd be a pleasure. I'd love that.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks everybody. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, and please make sure you check out the description below for links to Faith and Family Life Catholic Ministries, where you can learn about the very information that we talked about today. So take care and God bless.